And I'd like to kick it off to RCAI's Vice President, Mr. Bo Brown.
Well, Chad, thank you. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I want to welcome you from Greenville, South Carolina. Tell you a little bit about myself. I am the Vice President now of RCAI. I'm a funeral director. I own a funeral home here. Our funeral home's in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. I have been collecting Railroadiana since I was 12 years old. My grandfather worked for Southern Railroad out of Spartanburg, South Carolina at the Hain Car Shop. And when I was 12, he gave me a water pitcher out of a dining car. And that kind of set the spark. It turned into a flame and then to a roaring fire. So I've been doing it a few years. My main interest, of course, is Southern Railway. And as I go through this tonight and I say things about Southern Railway, if you're a fan of another railroad, don't take anything I say as derogatory towards any other railroad. It's just my favorite railroad is the Southern. So the picture that you have on your screen here tonight is Southern Railway's first emblem. I recently received this. I know it's not dining car china or silver. So as we go through tonight, there's going to be some hardware. There's going to be some paper. There's going to be some uniform items. I'm kind of trying to cover all aspects of passenger car service on the Southern. But this particular SR era, we recently picked up at an estate sale. And the size of it is almost 20 inches long. The picture does not do it justice. And it's solid brass. And I believe this to be an early locomotive emblem that would have been on the cylinder covers. We have found one picture that the SR era isn't quite like this, but it's very similar. So when it was riveted on something, and I believe it to be off a cylinder cover, but that is how I wanted to start this. Just a beautiful piece, old. I mean, this is pre-1900. So that's our hardware to start the show. But as you see, that was Southern Railroad's first emblem. And when they organized in 1894, they kind of came out of the ashes of the Richmond and Danville, the East Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia, the Memphis and Charleston, and the Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Texas Pacific. When those railroads went into receivership, they came out of receivership as the Southern Railway. The emblem is very reminiscent of the old Richmond and Danville locomotive. The logo where they used the RD with the era. The only thing Southern did was really change the direction. Normally that SR era would be in the opposite direction. And that's, like I said, that's the reason I think it came off the fireman's side of the cylinder cover. But when Southern did organize in 1894. By 1900, they had 3 dining cars. And so on those dining cars, like all railroads, I mean, they had the linen tablecloths, they had the napkins, they had the waiters in white uniforms, and they were serving off china and silver and crystal. And so the first pattern that Southern used in their dining car service was the SR era logo china. It was just a plain white china with the light blue SR era logo. In 1900, they had 3 dining cars. So it got to be where when you look for this china and you look for this silver, it's very hard to come by because, like I said, in 1900, they had 3 dining cars. By 1905, they had 13. But it's still not a lot compared to some of the major railroads that had just by this time probably 50 or 60 dining cars on their routes. So with this, the SR era logo, this first shows up in 1890. I've got 1897, but it's actually 1898 in the photographs and the silver books and everything is when this first shows up. I do want to comment on the dining car crock that is in this picture. When I first got this piece, I was very curious about it, whether it was real or a reproduction, a fake, whatever you want to call it. And so I took it to a gentleman who is a known Southern pottery, not Southern Railroad, but pottery from the South. And I told him, I said, what can you tell me about this crock? And so he looked at it and investigated. And the first thing he told me, he said, the clay is from outside Atlanta, Georgia. He said, I said, okay, so what does it date to? He said, late 1800s, early 1900s. And so, like I said, he knew nothing about Southern Railway. So I feel sure that this crock probably did see service on the Southern. I've seen one other piece of it over the years. It's a beautiful piece. The SR Era logo is probably my favorite on this silver, on the China too. And then another piece of the SR Era is this is this water pitcher. It's got a later top on it. But I was looking at this, and this came from a fellow collector in Virginia. And there was some question as to the legitimacy of it, because the SR Era on it is etched. It isn't wheel cut. It isn't stamped. It's etched in there with acid. So then I did some research on that also, and I found that etching on glass became very popular at the turn of the century. So again, it was something that was very common. It was a quick way to mark glass. So after looking at it, and I've had some people look at the glass on it, it is a nice old blown container. So again, I believe this is an early Southern piece. This picture here is a 1900 heavyweight dining car on the Queen and Crescent, which of course was, a Southern subsidiary. And on it, again, you see the silver, you see the water pitchers there, similar to what the B&O used with the handles on the water bottle itself, and the silver, the flatware on the tables, the cream and sugar. I just think it's a beautiful thing. You can look at this and tell that this was certainly five-star dining in 1900. First, here we have a 1900 dinner menu on the Washington and Southwestern Limited, which later became the Crescent, in the Southern's, I guess, most famous train, 37 and 38, over the years. So, but on this great dinner menu, one thing that I guess I would have to wonder about eating would be that calf's head soup. I think I could probably handle everything else on there, but calf's head soup is not something that I believe that I would want. So we started in, like I said, the early 1900s, late 1800s with Southern and their SR pattern China. They rolled along. And then in 1909, they changed their China pattern. They changed their silver pattern. As you'll notice that the China, this is the Pelican pattern. And it is the same, it's the same China that Pullman was using, called the Calumet pattern. So I know that a lot of Southern dining cars were Pullman. So you just have to, believe that we want our China to say Southern on it. We don't want it to say Pullman. So they adopted this pattern of China. Here's some more pieces in it. I mean, there right in the center is a little shell cup for ice cream or whatever. It's just one of my favorite pieces. I was just thrilled when I found that cup and saucer and the Demitasse cup and saucer. So, but like I said, that's 1909, and was all things with Southern. If they had a China mark, they had hollowware mark. This is 1909 by Reed and Barton, and it has just plain block Southern on the side. If you want to zoom in on that logo, see, we've got the Southern there, and they're all marked. These were all side marked or top marked pieces. So it's just a nice, it's not as nice as the SR Era in my opinion, but it is just a nice silver setting, look good on the table. So we've got that. In this period also, there's a lot of silver patterns that don't match China patterns. This one is Smith silver, circa pre-1912, because in 1912, Smith silver sold out. They became Albert Pick after that. So all of this is Smith silver. Two of the pieces of the coffee pot and the large sugar actually came from a gentleman. I bought it from a grandson of one of the vice presidents of Southern Railway. And he claimed that this was used on his grandfather's private car that he had. And I've never have understood why he actually sold it to me. If it had been my grandfather's, it would not have left my possession. But anyway, so I believe some of this was used on on business cars, along with the R. Wallace silver, where some of it's side marked in a script Southern, some of it is back stamped. I have noticed on these pieces, especially the ones where the logos have worn off the side, if the bottom marked pieces were in block letters, side marked pieces were side marked and marked on the bottom in cursive. So a lot of times you see these and they have the cursive bottom. At one time before replating, they had that on the side logo also. So now in 1920, I assume that Southern needed to fill in this 1909 Reed and Barton silver pattern that they had used. So they started marking this 0143 pattern from Reed and Barton with the same logo that the 1909 had. And I don't know if it was because the other pattern had been discontinued or if they knew what was coming and they decided to go to this pattern to match up with what was coming in 1925. So as you'll see when I get to that, it's the same pattern, just different logo. So I'm not sure about that. We've always heard about the railroad. I think they always complained about the dining cars never making money. And so this is a 1922 Christmas menu. It's a beautiful menu, a lot of work gone into it. We've got the string, the tassel. Inside, we have the printing that's in gold also. This was used for December 25th, 1922. They used this for one day. They griped about not having money and losing money on the dining cars, but they make a menu that probably cost a great deal in the day to use for one day and throw away. So I thought that was kind of interesting as to how they did it. So in 23-24, Southern ordered some more heavy, the 3100 series dining cars, ordered quite a few of these because at this point, they have built their fleet up to 45 dining cars in the mid-20s. And so this is one of those cars. This is the 3162. These are Pullman photographs that I've got the actual Pullman photograph copies. So the next one is the inside of that same dining car. And as you see, it's still very heavyweight. We've got the heavy chairs, the heavy tables, the real thick mohair carpet and whatnot. So, I mean, it's just, again, all the fittings and everything. It was, again, very luxurious, very stately, very five-star restaurant, Old South. So this is in that same series. This is a 3168. And this is the picture of the dining car crew. The cooks, the waiters, and the dining car stewards. So they were all dressed in their best whites. Just very, again, five-star restaurant. I just love it. In the South, I'm from the South, so I'm sure when you boarded a train, you were just impressed, very much so, because that was not the South of the 1920s for most people. So I just love that picture. I'm gonna back up just a little bit because this is the logo that was about to come on to the scene for Southern Railway. And in 1915, L.E. Jeffries, who was general attorney and VP for Southern Railway, designed this logo using a dime and a nickel while he was riding on his private car. He took the nickel first and he drew the circle around it, and then he put the dime in the middle of the other circle and drew a circle inside that one. And then he filled it up with the SR. And then we put the Southern Service of South. And I love this logo because the Southern did serve the South. It was the premier carrier of the South. And I thought it was very fitting that he comes up with this logo. Like I said, he comes up with it in 1915. And then it starts showing up into the mid-20s. In 1925, Southern Railway, again, went from the Pelican pattern to probably their most famous, their most collected, the most attractive pattern that they ever used, which was the peach blossom. This china It came in all the pieces, you know, anything, platters and dinner plates and bowls and everything that they had this side marking on them. And it just was very impressive. So again, at that time, they outfit their silver and they go with this 0143 pattern silver. This is the same silver that they used as fill-in, the same pattern that they used in fill-in 1920. So like I said, I go back to that one. I don't know if it was they knew this was going to be their next pattern or if they were just forced to use this. It's really hard to say. But on their menus, they started using this from the Piedmont Limited. This is from 1926, I believe, 26 or 27. They've gone to using the Southern Serves the South logo on everything that they did. It became their logo. The SR arrow was phased out. The Southern with the railway system under it was basically phased out, and the Southern Serves the South became their go-to logo for everything that they did. So also in 25, they published this book, this dining car service book. And this was given to all waiters. It was given to the stewards. It was given to the cooks. And it, in great detail, explains how food was to be plated, how food was to be served, how it was to be, everything about it. Nothing was left to chance. If you put a steak on a plate, it was put on in a certain way and it had a certain garnish. And my favorite thing in the whole book and reading, and it's very enjoyable to read, but they have a portion in it about butter. At that time, we all know butter was served on butter pats. So when you took the butter to the table, the butter should have 3 to 4 fork marks on the top of the pat of butter. That way, it was to ensure to the consumer, to your customer, that you have not touched that butter. You cut it, you forked it, and then you put it on. I've often wondered, did they use the knife to get it off the fork, or did they indeed use their finger to get it off? And just, I'd be doing my finger, I know, myself. So, but it is a very good instructional book on the process and the way that Southern served their customers. So this is one of their cold dishes. This is from 27. Of course, we all know in the South in the summer it's very hot, and I'm sure that those dining cars were hot, and they're like every other car. So here you could get all the things to drink and the cucumber salads and the bottled milk and ginger ale and half and half of graham crackers. So this was, I just love the graphics on this menu. It's just, I don't know, it just kind of reaches out to you. I think if on a hot day, you'd really want to take something off this menu because it just appeals so much about that. Still with the Southern Serves the South logo, in 1931, Southern, we're into the Depression now, and Southern bought some silver from International Silver. It's the first time that it really shows up with International Silver being used. Now, I wonder if, because we were in the Depression, if they reached out to these guys, we need quotes on this. We're trying to save money, and International came in with a lower price. You don't see a lot of this silver. The silver did not hold up well to replating. The logos were not deep to start with. So after about 2 platings, the logos were just non-existent. All of these pieces are side marked. Some of them you can see. Some of them, again, you couldn't tell it was there. You have to get a magnifying glass to see it. The little creamer, it's there, but so weak. And again, that's just due to replating. I will mention the big water pitcher in the center. I got this at Gaithersburg several years ago from Leonard Robbins. And Leonard had it on the floor at his table, and I saw it was jet black. And I asked him about it, and he said, "I'll take it with you." He said, "I don't know where it's from, and just you can have it." So I went back to the hotel that night, ruined several of the Hilton's towels and sheets, I guess, their washcloths, and polished it up. And lo and behold, it was from Southern Railway. Again, the logo is very weak, but you can see it. But what I like most, I think, about this picture is at some point in time, this picture was put into the freezer with some liquid in it. It froze, it split, and it on the very front side, on the side of it, where the seam was originally, that seam split. Well, Southern, being a railroad that was very not wasteful, they didn't have a lot of money, and they had very few of these pictures. They sent this, I assume, because they sent to Spartanburg. That's where all the silver repair was done. They soldered it, silver soldered it back together, replated it, and they put it back into service, which to me, I love the picture from the standpoint of that it was done at Hain Car Shop, because I said earlier, my grandfather went to work for Southern in 1926 at Hain Car Shop. He retired in 1972 from Hain Car Shop. And even though he wasn't working in the silver department, he was working there when this was replated. So a nice piece. Now this is the Peach Blossom China. So the ones before, of course, always had the side logo on them. And these pieces are bottom marked. Again, I believe this is a direct result of the Depression, because in the Depression, of course, we're trying to save money. And bottom marked had to surely be cheaper than side marking a piece. So I believe that's where this china starts to show up. And they used it as filler from their days of, you know, the glory days of the side marked, and just used it on into the, well, into the late 40s, actually. So in 1939, or the late 1930s, I won't say 1939, 38, 39, you had the New York Central using Henry Dreyfuss to redesign their things. Raymond Lowry was redesigning the Pennsylvania Railroad things. And at that time, Southern started their quest to add 2 new trains to their livery. The Southerner and the Tennessean were those 2 trains. March 31st, 1941, the Southerner was introduced. It was a new train running from New York to New Orleans, changing direction in Atlanta over what the Crescent drove. So now they had 2 different streamlined trains daily that were going to New Orleans, just in different directions. The Tennessean came on in May 1st of 1941. That's when it entered into service. Here we have one of the Southerner engine. Just you know, in 1939, Southern had gone to diesel locomotives. These are some of their first on their streamlined trains, in the green and the whites and the golds, and these were just very attractive locomotives. I remember these. I don't remember steam locomotives. I remember these locomotives. They were still using these when I was a boy, and we would catch the train in Spartanburg. My grandfather and I would ride on the pass, and we'd ride to Atlanta and eat lunch and come back. So these were just mammoth, beautiful locomotives. This is one of the Southerner also. This is a company photo that was sent in a packet of photos to a lady in Central South Carolina. She requested free tickets, and they sent her free pictures instead. So, but it's still beautiful with the all streamlined, all stainless steel cars. It's just a very streamlined, beautiful train as it went down the track. This, of course, is the observation car on the Southerner. And one thing, because I'm going to talk about this in just a minute, I want you to notice on here that you see this one window shade in the side, and it's at a certain level. I'll get to that in a minute. It's kind of interesting about their window shades on the Southerner and the Tennessean. So I just wanted to mention that in passing here. This is the route map of the Southerner. Like I said, Southerner came through our hometown here in Greenville, then went to Atlanta and diverged off to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa and all that, down through Laurel and Hattiesburg, Gulfport, on into New Orleans. So it, like I said, it changed direction from what the Crescent did, but Crescent using the West Point and the L&N to finish their leg into New Orleans. So this is a gate sign from Boston on the Tennessean. The one on the Southerner was from Atlanta. But again, this is where when they would board the trains. And like I said, I wanted to add some hardware into this to kind of bring it into so that you see that some of the different things, again, advertising these trains, knowing where people were going to catch these trains, times and all that. So here is another company photo of the Tennessean. This was in that same packet of things. They're just beautiful, streamlined locomotives. I mean, they just look fast. And I think that was the whole point of this, is they're fast. And we're going to get you there. We're going to get you there in a hurry. You know, you don't have to worry. So, because by this time they're competing with airlines too. So, it's just, I love it. So, okay. Here again is the Tennessean route map coming out of Washington and finally making it over to Memphis. So, just again, serving more places at a better rate with better trains, better equipment, trying to encourage people to ride the train. So this is the inside of the Southerner dining car. We have gone from the heavyweight, the heavy things. Now we're going into more modern, more streamlined. The tables in this were from mica. They had a stylized S in the middle of them. They were kind of off-white with orange and green logo. You can see the stylized S there. Aluminum chairs with it's like almost like mohair, but not quite like. It's still some of the throwback to the heavyweight, but the mohair lasted a long time, so they would continue to use that. They brought in at the end of the car, you can see the photos. They've just lightened it up. Made it more like home, and like I said, it's not the heavyweight, it's more homey. So this is one of the first menus that they used on the Southerner. To me, it just reeks of, I mean, obviously it reeks of Old South, and I think even though they were trying to make modern and everything else, they didn't want to forget the Old South. Because, I mean, you know, the Old South was friendly, or the Old South was home people, you know, it was the good old days. And so I think they were still hanging on to that aspect of it pretty heavily. And so this, in their early advertising of the Southerner, they did use that. For the Southerner, for the Tennessean, they introduced this pattern of china in 1941, the Piedmont pattern. Again, full complement of different dishes. Here we have the stacking bowls that had two sizes of this so that they could stack those, because trying to save space in the galleys. I've seen pictures of these in some Ties magazines, and if you look at them really close, they had peaches in them. So I assume they were fruit bowls and or serving bowls on the train. But like I said, I love the ones that have the peaches in it. It happened to be the Peach Queen that was on. So, you know, what's better than a bowl of peaches on the Peach Queen, since the South is so famous for its peaches. The complimentary pieces of the Piedmont pattern with the gravy boats and the bouillons and the, you know, different. We have the coffee cup, the tea cup, the Demitasse cup, and then the celery in the middle, relish, whatever you want to call it. But they, again, all the china at this time on the Southerner, on the Tennessean, was the Piedmont. As with all trains, again, we have to have a silver to match that. At this point, they go to Reed and Barton and they get this pattern. This pattern was exclusive. It was always exclusive on the Southerner and the Tennessean. I've been very fortunate in this pattern. I've gotten all the pieces with the exception of a cocktail shaker. So if anybody, I'm gonna throw in an advertisement, anybody got a cocktail shaker out there you want to get rid of in this pattern, let me know. But this is a very, again, streamlined pattern. It got the circles around it. You know, the mount is just very streamlined. And again, I think that was all because all of their dining cars in that stainless steel had that fluting on the side of the dining cars. And I think they brought that fluting from the outside onto the inside of this silver. So this also was a pattern of silver used on the Southerner and Tennessean only. In Rudy Morgenfrew's book, they list this as pattern 172. For a long time, nobody really knew what or where this silver was used. I certainly didn't. Beautiful pattern, again, very streamlined. I love the forks in this pattern, but nobody knew where. So as it turns out, this was first used on the Southerner and Tennessean. This glassware was first used on the Southerner and Tennessean, and it's a throwback to that old logo. I mean, it's kind of interesting how they went streamline on everything else, and then they throw back to a very earlier style etching on these glasses. So, but they had this in the tea, the juice, the little water glass, a lot of sizes that they used in this. Okay, so now John Fowler's new silver book. I had never seen any of this actually in use, and when his new silver book came out, this is a picture that he found, and this was from Georgia State. This was in Georgia State University's archives. This is, let me get this, is Betty Shepard. She was Miss Georgia in 1941, and this is the Tennessean. And on it, it's hard to see in this picture because it's just not a really good digitized copy. I'm trying to get a better copy from the university, but I haven't succeeded yet. But it shows the flatware, it shows the china, it shows the silver, it shows the glasses, and it's the only picture I've ever seen with the flatware, with that 172 pattern flatware. And it's just, it all ties in because it has the fluting in it. The lines on the china, everything was meant to be streamlined. And this picture, it was just, when I saw it, his book is great. This picture was greater. This picture just got me excited that you can finally put this stuff on a table somewhere, that it wasn't a business card. This was actually used by the public, which to me is better than business card stuff. So. Okay, with the introduction of the Tennessean and the Southerner, they also was the introduction of the Hostess. At that time, again, they were competing with the airlines. Airlines had stewardesses. So the railroad, Southern Railway, brings on the Hostess. They used them in major advertising. These were in timetables. These were center sections in a lot of their timetables of the day. I've seen them in one other publication as an advertisement. They did it. They put their pictures on matches on the inside of these match covers. You've got the tiny matches, and that is Wanda Myers, who was over the whole program of the Hostess. And then you have the others on the bigger matches. And I think that, they little midget matches and had quite a few of these. These are the only ones that I've been able to get yet, but I'm still looking. But they were using, like I said, they were using these hostesses to advertise their trains. And so when you see this lady, okay, thank you for your patronage. If Miss Raines can help you, she will. And it's just, again, they're advertising these ladies to help you on the train, to make your train ride better, easier, and that they did. They used them on route cards. the pictures that you saw of the Southerner and the Tennessean earlier of the maps, they were on the reverse of this. This was a fold. This was a double fold or a single fold. On the back side of that fold was the map. On the inside was the schedule of the train. Miss Bacon, they must have liked her because she was on the Southerner and the Tennessean, and she had a business card. So I don't think all the hostesses made it on publications, but undoubtedly Miss Bacon, they liked hers, so she made it. Now this is Miss Jean Seal, and one of the few color pictures you'll ever see of these hostesses. I guess, you know, color photography just wasn't the thing back then. This you can see in person. You can see the colors aren't as good on the computer screen, but in person you can see that it's a dark green gabardine outfit that they were wearing. And to me, the hostesses were always kind of a curiosity. You'd see them in these pictures, and who were these ladies, and what did they actually do, and you know. So it was in 2008 actually. My wife Brenda worked for the City of Travelers Rest, and she was a clerical secretary. And a gentleman came by one day that she knew, and it was Mr. Vernon Garrett. And Mr. Garrett had on a Southern Railway hat. And so, of course, knowing that I collect, and Brenda being interested in it also, she asked Mr. Garrett if he worked for the railroad. She said, no, I didn't. My wife did. And she said, well, your wife did. And I guess she asked, what did she do? So I'm sure Brenda was expecting she was a secretary, she was this or that. He said, she was a train hostess. And Brenda said, really? She said, well, I can tell you right now, she said, before the sun sets, my husband will be in touch with your wife. So, and before the sun set that day, we had set up an appointment to meet Miss Garrett. And I call her my hostess, because here she was from where I work. She lived 2 miles down the road. I had no earthly idea that Myra Garrett had been a hostess for Southern Railway. She joined Southern Railway in 1946. She was at the university. She was attending Mississippi Southern College in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And she saw a flyer in the school there, and they were advertising jobs, positions for Pan American Airlines. She said, I'm going to go see the world. So she was going to apply. So she went home. She said something to her mother and father about that she wanted to be an airline stewardess. And Mama got sick, and Daddy said no. And so that dream went out the window very quickly. About a month later, she happened to see an advertisement for hostesses on the Southern Railway. So she went home, played it a little different this time, and she said, Mom and Daddy, do y'all like the train? And they were like, oh, we love the train. Train comes through Hattiesburg every day. It's just beautiful. She said, well, I've applied to be a hostess on Southern Railway trains. What could they say? They just told her they'd love the train. So this time she had applied. She soon after that got a telegram asking her to come along with a guest to New Orleans to do an interview. When she gets to New Orleans, she said they had 3 specific rules about being a hostess. One, first and foremost, you could not be married, and you could not have any intentions of being married anytime soon. The second one was you had to be between 22 and 33 years old. And she said, well, I've got that one. And then the third standard was you had to be 5'6" to 5'9". She said, at that point, I was in trouble. She said, because I was only 5'5". She said, but when they got ready to check her height, which I mean, they checked your height. She said she engaged the lady that was checking her height in conversation. And as she was about to do the thing, she stood up on her tiptoes and she made it to 5'6". So by standing on her tiptoes, she passed that test and was then invited later on to come to Washington to interview with Wanda Myers. She did that. She passed that test, and she was hired by Southern Railroad at $100 and I think $50 every 2 weeks. So she did get her job. Again, she started in 1946. With their uniforms, this is one of the hostess hats. With their uniforms, they were fitted for these uniforms in Baltimore, and they got to buy their own uniforms. The railroad did not buy their uniforms. The uniform was $110. And when you left the railroad, you got to give them the uniform you bought, you got to give it back to them. But here, like I said, here's one of the hostess hats. But when she said that once she was trained, and she was trained in etiquette and how to speak and not to speak Southern, that she said that was one of the things. They didn't want you to speak Southern. They wanted you to be Southern, but you did not speak Southern. You didn't draw out your sentences like most of us do. But when they finally, like I said, they would order your uniform, be fitted for it. They would come to the railroad, not you. And when they gave you your uniform, you started work. So she started there in, like I said, 1946, about April of 46 is when she started. And this is her pass from 1947. I just in love with this pass. I am a Southern pass collector, and I had never, ever seen a hostess pass. I've never seen another one. I'm sure they're out there. I'd just not seen them. So this is just a great, great addition, I believe, in her history and her lineage. On the front of the pass, it says it's not good on trains 37, 38, 45, 46, 47, 48. But on the back, I guess they did give her permission to ride on the train she worked. So because she worked 45, 46, 47, and 48. So at least they let her ride the train she worked in the downtime. So I thought that was pretty good. Here she is in 1947 in Washington Terminal. I'll go back just a minute. I forgot to say, when she went to interview in Washington, she rode from New Orleans. She went to Hattiesburg to New Orleans, and for whatever reason, and went to Washington. When she got off at the Washington Terminal, it was pouring rain, and Southern had not sent a car for them or anything. So her and her mother had to walk from Washington Terminal to the Southern office building in the pouring rain. She said she just knew when she got there she'd never get the job because she was just drenched. Said she was just soaking wet, but she did get the job. So she talked about a lot of things in the railroad that she did. And in their free time, as you can see, they would ride. She had their bikes and everything. But here she had her uniform on. She said that they took a dim view of that. She should have had her coat on at that time, but I don't know if I can't remember if she told me she took it off or whatever, because this is the first time she ever met her future husband, Vernon. And when Vernon took the picture, he was in the military, and he saw another guy was there with him, and he said, I'm going to marry her. And about a year and a half later, he did. So I always thought that was pretty good. But they had lots of the jobs on the train. She said one of the jobs that was very difficult was, as they went into each station, they had to get the window blinds at a certain height. That's the reason I said on that observation car earlier, note where that window blind was. As they pulled into stations, the hostess, one of their responsibilities was to get all of these window shades at the exact same level. She said, have you ever tried doing that on 8 cars that have children on them? She said, because you'd pull one down and they'd pull it farther or push it up. She said that was just a very difficult time. And then just a little bit more about her. A typical trip for these ladies, they worked 3 days on, 2 days off. 3 days on, 2 days off. I mean, that was just their schedule. A typical trip, they went from Washington to New York on the Pennsylvania. They went from the Pennsylvania back to, they went from New York to Washington back on the Pennsylvania. In Washington, they headed south. They pick up a Southern crew. They go from there to New Orleans. They spend the night, and then she comes back to Washington. She's the only person on that trip that goes the entire way. She was not union. All of the other workers, the engineers, the conductors, the porters, the cooks, whoever, they were all unionized workers. She was not union, so she worked the entire trip. I mean, I thought that was interesting because that's a lot of hours. When you get up at 6 in the morning, you go to bed between 10 and 11 at night, it's just a long day. And she said when she did get to go to sleep, her room was a roomette in the back of the club car. And she said what happened was, she said at night they'd be sound asleep. They'd get somewhere and they'd hook up another car. She said, and when they did, they'd just slam it into that one. She said many a time she woke up in the floor where it had knocked her out of her berth. So it was kind of interesting. Another thing, and this goes back to the silver and the hostess. Years ago when I was in college, I bought this coffee pot, 1941, Southerner issued coffee pot in Atlanta. And when I bought it, it was full of crayons. And in my mind, I could just see this at grandma's house that she had done, stole it from the train, took it home, put crayons in there for the children. And it's up on the shelf when they come in, let's play crayons. I was doing a China silver program one day, and a lady, I said just what I said to you. And she said, well, I don't know about that story. She said, when I was a young girl, she said, my brother and I were riding a Southern train. And she said, my brother was just a holy terror. And she said, at that time, he brought out a coffee pot full of crayons and a coloring book for my brother. Well, when I started working on this presentation, I contacted Myra's daughter and asked her if I could scan a few more things. Well, she shows up with this coloring book. And I thought, oh my gosh, these hostesses were giving out coloring books. They were giving out crayons and coffee pots. I mean, is there a better pair? I mean, it just brought, to me, it brought the whole story of the service they were giving. They had everything. They had it for the children. They had it for the adults. They would do anything. If an adult needed to know where to go, where to eat, all these hostesses knew. Service. Southern serves the South. So they also had a page in here that this is the club car. And that's where the hostess is in this coloring book, which I found awfully strange because when I was interviewing Myra, she told me there was one car that they did not work. And I said, what car was that? She said, the club car. She said, ladies did not go in the club car. So in the coloring book, they put the ladies in the club car. I thought that to be very interesting. Lake Pontchartrain. The Southerner, of course, crossed Lake Pontchartrain on every trip. She had a comment. She was talking about Lake Pontchartrain, and she said that it was a very scary time. She said, especially in a storm. She said when they would cross Lake Pontchartrain, all 6 miles of it, in a storm, she said they would just creep across the track. And she said waves would be hitting them on both sides of the train at window height. So we have rolling waves coming up, hitting these windows that are way above the track and the lake. She said if she never had to go across Lake Pontchartrain in a storm again, it'd be okay. She wasn't real fond of that. Another thing I will comment about Lake Pontchartrain and dining car china and silver. I talked to an old cook one time on the Southern, and he was talking about as they were headed into New Orleans, one thing they had to have everything put up, washed, and taken care of before they could leave the train. He said, and on some of these trains, and they've been delayed or been really busy, they were really way behind. He said, so as if they were just where they knew that they were just going to be a long time cleaning these dishes and everything, a lot of china went out the half door. He said they would just chunk it into Lake Pontchartrain as they passed. So I guess if you ever took a notion to dive in Lake Pontchartrain, you could probably find a lot of dining car china, silver, no telling what you'd find in there. So I always thought that was just a great story. Say one more thing about Myra. She said the food on the train she just loved. She loved the fried chicken dinners and baked beans with whole sausage patties in them. She said, man, that was just fine Southern eating. She said the only problem was the menu never changed. You always ate fried chicken and sausage baked beans with sausage patties. She said you better like it. So, but again, with Myra, she worked from Southern from 1946 to 48. did a little math on that and the trips and the days she worked. In that time, she rode 500,000 miles on the train. For 2 years, she ate with everyone else. She ate after everyone else. She rarely slept. She worked long hours and made less than anyone on the train. But I can tell you, when I was talking to her, if you mentioned train 47 and 48, 45 or 46, the gleam was still in her eye. She loved riding and working those trains. She's just a beautiful lady. Unfortunately, her and Vernon have passed away since then. And so if you ever want to read the whole article, I did an article in the Express magazine. It was a spring 2008 Express. And the title of it is Reflections of a Southern Hostess. If you want to read her whole story, it's there. If you don't happen to have that magazine, I do have PDF copies. I can email you. Look inside the cover of any current Express. My email's there. Like I said, if you want to read it, let me know. And then I'm going to finish my story on hostesses with this. This was kind of funny. She said, I almost didn't get to work for Southern Railway after I got hired. She said one of her first trips out, she was going from Washington to New York. And of course, that was Pennsy territory. So the conductors and all that staff were Pennsylvania employees. Said she was going from one car to the next, checking on passengers. And as she walked into the vestibule, she said one of the Pennsylvania conductors just reached out and patted her on the rear end. She said she promptly turned around, slapped him in the face, instructed him to never do that again, and went on about her business. She said they went to New York. They did what they do in New York. She came back to Washington. They stopped the train, and here was another hostess standing there asking for her keys, and someone promptly took her to the Washington office of Southern Railway to meet with Wanda Myers. When she met with Wanda Myers, Wanda asked her, she said, what did you do? And she told her, she said, you can't do that. You can't, no matter what they do, you cannot do that. She said, if you ever do that again, you will be fired. And Myra looked at her and said, well, if he ever does it again, then you'll have to fire me. She said, because I'll do the same thing again. She said, no one ever touched her again. She said, from that point on, they all respected her because she stood up for herself. She was in her 80s when I met her. Great, great, great lady. So that's my story of the Southern hostesses. I'm going to get back to dining car now. So, oh, well, not quite. This is letters this is her resignation acceptance letter. The next letter is her final paycheck letter. So her final paycheck with Southern Railway was $111.81. What a kind of amazing when you think about it. It's good money when you actually look at what it was in the day to dollars now. But that was it. And then this is one of her trip tickets from Greenville to Atlanta. I liked it because at this point she's dating Vernon, and they don't know she's dating Vernon. It's the trains would come from Greenville into Greenville. Vernon would be waiting for her, and they would court, as she said, on the there at the station. And then he would race in his Jeep to Easley, which was about 15 miles away, and meet her there, and they'd court again. So again, they got married in late 1948. So great story, great people. In 1951, 10th year anniversary of the Southerner, they put on a party for it, and this was given to all the guests. This and the next page is just a little flyer, tells all about, this thing is about 10 pages long, tells all about the Southerner. Everything you ever wanted or didn't want to know about the Southerner is in this. So it's kind of interesting. This was in her memoirs, so we enjoyed it. Another train that had hostesses on it from time to time, was the Royal Palm. This is a gate sign from the Royal Palm. This is from Jacksonville, Florida, there at Union, the terminal down there. Next picture is, they used the hostesses on their advertisements too, but I think it's interesting on the Royal Palm, unlike the Southerner and the Tennessean, they were just hostesses. On this, they're train passenger representatives and hostesses. So they were taken 2 jobs on that train. And this is the other one. This is from 1958. This is probably the last advertisement I've ever seen that late for a hostess. Like I said, again, train rep and hostess. So that kind of ended it on the Southern Tennessee, and the hostesses went away in the early 50s. It just was a program that they didn't sustain. You know, ridership was not what they wanted, and it was a job they could cut. So typical railroad. So now we're going to fast forward to 1948. I hope I'm not keeping y'all too long, but we're going to fast forward to 1948, the Crescent, which again, Crescent was always the main train on Southern Railroad. It was 37 and 38. It started out in 1894 as the Washington Southwestern Vestibule Limited. About 1908, it was the New York and New Orleans Limited. 20s, it became the Crescent Limited. In the 48 here, it became the Crescent. And then when they were at the end of passenger service, it was the Southern Crescent. So it too had to have its own silver. This was in 1948. Again, they're using international silver. The winged finial logo, beautiful, beautiful silver. This is, again, they're portraying through their silverware fast. I mean, that streaking through the wind. This is a very desirable pattern, I believe. In Southern silver, you can really find nice pieces because there was so much of it. You can find nice pieces, and there's lots of pieces, and this 48-ounce water pitcher, just nice big pieces. This is barware used on the Southern Crescent. Again, circa 1948. The ice bucket, the cocktail shakers, the strainer, the jigger, tongs and stir, all marked from the Southern. Just nice compliment. Dining car on the Southerner shows all the pieces. You can see the wing finial logos. You can see Piedmont China, the Century flatware. Again, waiters in their white, all white. So we'll go to the next one. This was the only, this 2 pieces of silver, kind of oddball pieces. These were used on the Royal Palm. And I believe this was pool silver because they had pool china. The next one, this is the Carolina pattern, because Royal Palm was the ACL, the FEC, and the Southern. And I think that they just, I know they did on the china. They had pool china. You bought so much and you just put in the pool and it was used. I think the same way with the silver. Undoubtedly, Southern's contribution to pool china was this relish dish, because that I've seen more of those than anything else. I was able to find the cup and saucer, which I was happy, but these are the only 3 pieces I've ever found with Southern's name on. You can find it everywhere with ACL or FEC, but the Southern, it was just the only 3 pieces I found. So here we have a steak dinner. This is from the 1950s, another little menu. I put this in here just for the simple reason, $4 for a steak dinner, that's a good deal. I mean, when you look at it and think about it in today's terms, but I did the math on this, and if this was 1955 and a steak dinner was $4, it'd be $42.35 today. My wife and I and her daughter went to a steakhouse last night, and that's what I paid, I think, for about each person was $42.35. So it's kind of kept up with the day. You know, what was then is now. Another nice pass, wanted to bring this up. This is a cook on the Southern, only one of these I've ever seen. But again, there's more, I'm sure. But from Marshall, North Carolina. With Marshall, North Carolina, I do wonder if he was on the Carolina Special for where he, I mean, I just almost believe, because they did live within the vicinity of where they were working. So I do have to wonder if he was on the Carolina Special. But the pass being, if you note on, it's colored. So it, and he couldn't ride on any of the name trains, nor could he ride in a Pullman car or a parlor car. So, you know, 1948, where segregation is still hot and heavy. So it kind of gives you a little glimpse, time capsule of history. So, and then the next picture, these are the cooks on the Southern Crescent in 1975. So December 30th, 1975. A guy put this on Facebook one day, and I sent him a note, and I said, man, can I use your picture? That's just a great picture of the cooks and the galley. And we know they're on Southern, and he let me do it. So I appreciate that. Again, this is the last menu that Southern ever used. They ended dining car service. They started in 1894 and they ended dining car service on January 31st, 1979. All other Class I railroads went to Amtrak in 1972. Southern did not go at that time. They were still running the Crescent and the Piedmont, but they did finally give in, like I said, on January 31st, 1979, and gave into Amtrak. But they did continue the Crescent name. It still lives today. So there's still a little bit, still running the same route. So it's still a little bit of history from the Southern lift. That's what I have in the way of dining car, just history. I just want to show a few pictures here of some of my favorite pieces out of my collection. I thought you might want to see them. This first piece surely came out of a business car. I can't imagine this being on revenue service, but this is a 5-piece. It's all matching numbers. I feel like I'm a car dealer when I'm talking about it. It's all matching numbers, but it is, each piece has the same number. So it is a series. Here it is divided. We found the teapot first from Tom Brown in Knoxville years ago. Some of you guys will know Tom. And about 10 years later, we found the creamer, which is the top. It is fitted. It is fits perfectly into it. Then we later found what we thought was a butter pat, and then we realized it was actually the lid for the creamer. So you had the either coffee tea, then you had cream, then you had cubed sugar and the sugar tongs. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful set. Bottom marked Southern, like I said, about 1915. So then this is one of 2 water pitchers we have. I believe this one to be the earliest. It's got the Southern Serves the South logo, and then with the centric rings around it and the glass to match with the centric rings. The top on this is Smith silver. So it is with the decanter, 1925. This top is pre-1912. It's bottom marked as Southern Smith Silver Company. Fits these. So somewhere out there, and if anybody out there watching this happens to have a early water pitcher between the SR era and maybe Mark Southern or something, I'd love to know the top size, just see what this actually went on to start with. But it does fit this decanter very nicely. The next one is the same one without the centric circles around the going across the logo. It has the 1925 era top. I always call this the pacifier because it just looks like a pacifier to me. So that's one. So, okay. Then some of the ice buckets from Southern. These pictures don't do it well. The Reed and Barton, the International, and they get another Reed and Barton. This one in the center is huge. It has to be 84 plus ounces. It's a massive. When I bought it, I thought it was small, and it comes in this huge box, and it turned out it's wonderful. I mean, it's just a beautiful bowl, serving bowl. So this is barware from the 1925 time with the tray and the ice bucket. The ice bucket's another picture, but it's still with this, the sugar tong, the ice tong. I do like to talk about the shaker in the middle. Of course, this is 1925. And if you look at the Reed and Barton description of this, it's a lemonade shaker. Well, I guess they couldn't put that it was a liquor shaker because they were right in the midst of the Prohibition. So it became the lemonade shaker. I always thought that was just a good story with it. Some of the toothpick holders we've got, from 1898 to 1948, the SR era, the little International silver. It's actually, I found out it's not 23, it's 31, and then 1909, and then the one used on the Crescent is the 48, and then the Queen and Crescent is 1915 on the Wallace. Then different mustard pots, one in the center, very center is a business car, SR era. I think the one most interesting and probably the most unseen would be the Smith silver circa 1910 with that lattice basket weave. I've never seen another one like that. I've never seen any. So that in person, that's just a very attractive piece of railroad silver. So finger bowls, everybody's seen it, but if you, every service, everything had a finger bowl. So more ice buckets, again, just the different eras, different shine. The one in the middle, the R. Wallace one, it's bottom stamped, and it's bottom stamped in cursive. So at one time it had a big old cursive Southern on the side of it, but plating has long taken that away. So this is a nice Cruet set from 1909 service, top marked with the service. Originally it would have had the oil and vinegar with it. I don't know if oil and vinegar went out of the way or whatever, but now it's 2 salts and 2 peppers. So, but just a nice set. The like dustpan crummers. If you're familiar with crummers, the waiters would carry these around and they would scrape the crumbs off the table and then deposit them, in the trash or whatever. So each silver service had at least one of these. These are the handled type. I think it's interesting because in the previous picture, there was an SR era crumb tray that style, but there's also an SR era, and this is the one that the silver is worn out on the far left. Is that one, but over on the handle, it's got the SR era. So they had all kind of different. They're made by the same company. So these these are little bullion cups. These are just wonderful pieces, in my opinion. When I got this one and the next one, there it is, SR era. And if you zoom in on that, Joseph, if you look at this SR era, look at the grooves, look at the cuts in that SR. This was never replated. This is as it was from the factory. This thing is made in 1898. And we're 120 plus years into this thing, and it is beautiful. A good friend of mine in Gainesville, Georgia, he had several of these, and he found a potter in Atlanta to make these inserts. I'd never seen inserts for any of these, and we were talking one day. I went and saw his collection. He had them, and he was gracious enough to get the guy to make me some, and I just appreciate that. And I hope he's listening tonight. I know he was supposed to, but thank you for helping with that. And then the next one is just the later version of it again. Without they're nice. When they didn't have the inserts, they were nice, but man, when you put the inserts in it, they're just grand. So it's beautiful stuff. Here is a Car 1, which became Car Virginia later on in 1928, Southern Railway business car, President of Southern Railway. At some point in time was served off this, ate off this, whatever. And that's just cool. So, and then this is a porter / waiter off the Virginia, Carolina. I happen to know the porter that this came from. I know the family, but they've asked that I not divulge the man's name, so I won't. But this was his, when he worked the Virginia, Carolina, this was his uniform. So I don't know how many of those are around. And we're going to end up now with there's 4 more pictures, so I'm about done. This is a Queen and Crescent caster set from about 1900. It's Car 293. Got the nice intertwined QNC logo. Right after Brenda and I got married, we bought this piece in Spencer, North Carolina. It was just the holder, did not have the salt and pepper, did not have the oil and vinegar. We searched, we found the oil and vinegar pretty quick. 20 years later, we found the salt and pepper. So I'm glad this has been a good journey for she and I. I'll say this about my wife and all this, she's just puts up with me. Man, if I go on a journey, she's with me. She's there with me every step. She's watching tonight. She's in Virginia junking with her daughter. So she left me at home. But this is a nice Queen and Crescent piece. I'm just proud to have this one. And then here are 3 different Queen and Crescent mustard pots. The one on the top, this one's got the intertwined logo, got the white milk glass insert. I thought that was neat. And then the one over on the left-hand side of the screen is Car 95 from the Queen and Crescent. So it's bottom marked Car 95. So, and then next, even the Queen and Crescent had to get into the crummer business too. let me see which, I got to get this right when I tell this story. I'm full of stories, but the crummer at the very top was the first piece of dining car silver I ever bought. I bought it when I was 15 years old. Some of you guys who have been in this hobby for a long time will remember Private Car Limited in Belleville, Illinois. He would put out a booklet of things for sale. Most of the stuff he had I could not afford, but I could afford this at 15, and it is the first piece I ever bought. Wouldn't take anything for it. And then the last piece that I'm going to show tonight, this is Southern Railway. I've never seen another one from Southern. Smith Silver, undoubtedly, it had to be on a business car. I don't care. It just, this is one of the highlights of my personal collection. I have a dear friend in Greensboro, North Carolina, that he and I fought each other for silver for many, many, many years. If we saw it on eBay, whoever bid on it first got it. We did not, we had a gentleman's agreement. We would not bid against each other. He saw it first, he bid on it, he won it. I finally made it up to his house to see it. First time, I went in and just got it. Well, few years later, he decided that he was going to branch off and he was going to get out of the dining car china and silver. He was going more towards hardware signs. He loves Railway Express. And so I bought his silver collection. Well, at the time, it was right funny because his wife, we were getting ready to pack up all the stuff, and his wife came down the hall and she said, well, Bo, she said, I've got to look at this one more time. She said, I've always enjoyed this. She said, but I knew years ago when you came up here and saw this, she said, you just picked up that pot, you put your old nasty tongue and you just licked it. She said, I knew at that time when you licked it, we'd never get your tongue marks off of it and that you'd end up with it one day. So that, and when I think of this, I think of Margaret, sweet, sweet lady. She's since passed on, but again, the memory of her and just, it's just a great piece in my collection. So that's all I've got. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope you had a good nap, if nothing else. And I do love Railroadiana. I love the Southern Railway. I love RCAI. I've enjoyed being a part of it. And just let you know out there, there's some great things coming from RCAI in the not too distant future. Chad is doing a great job and he's pointing us in a good direction. So Chad, I'll turn it back to you and I'll shut up. So.
Well, Bo, that was absolutely incredible. And
you're muted, Chad.
I'm not a china and silver collector, but appreciate.
Did my speaker go on? It may have.
But we're going to have some questions here. Bo, as long as you can hear me, I guess I'll kick.
I can hear you now. My external speaker had gone to sleep. I at least put it to sleep. So
there you go. So as a C&O and TP junkie, if you will.
Yep.
We'll start off. I'll start off there, and then we'll let the chat and the Q&A and folks raise their hand. Again, if you have a question at the bottom of your screen, feel free to hit the raise your hand or the chat function, and we'll take those. But we'll start on the C&O and TP. So with the Royal Palm and Ponce de Leon and Carolina Special, et cetera, would they eventually use the peach blossom pattern, or do we know what was on there? Obviously, you pointed out on the Royal Palm there was the pool china and silver, but what was known to come off of there?
Well, I don't know exactly, but I would have to assume that the peach blossom and then later the Piedmont, just simply because you do not see, you see Q&C silver. You do not see Q&C china. It's just, I've seen maybe 10 pieces in the whole time I've been collecting, which is 50 years. And when you see it, a beat up, cracked, chip piece is still $1,000. So I just have to assume that they were using the china that Southern was using after Southern took them over, because it just disappeared. It's all that early box logo stuff that you see in China. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean the QNC was more or less a promotional name, if you will, to make it sound bigger than what it was. So,
well, they had some good trains though.
They definitely had some good trains. So, again, if you have a question or comments, feel free to hit the Q&A or the chat function or raise hand. If you raise hand, we're going to ask you to participate here. So we do have a question. I assume it's from Vic Ryerson. Has to unmute here.
I don't hear, Vic.
Hey, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Vic, we can.
Okay, first of all, great presentation, Bo. I loved it. I got two questions. I missed the first 10 minutes or so, and I see that it says recording up in the upper left-hand part of the screen. Where can I replay that?
Chad and Joseph will be getting together and putting that out on YouTube. I don't know they can speak more on the time frame, but that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, we're hoping to have it on YouTube in the next 7 to 10 days is probably what we're looking like.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Well, I don't want to miss a minute of it. The other part of my question is about the finials that were used on the silver on the crescent with the ball and wing is what we call it out west, because Southern Pacific had a very similar, if not identical, pattern. And I'm just wondering if you know whether there was any conscious relationship between the two, or whether that was just a pattern that Southern ordered and it happened to, yeah, there you go. And it happened to coincide with what SB was doing.
If there was any relationship, I don't know it. I don't know of it. I know the Milwaukee Road also had a winged finial.
Similar,
we always called it winged finial, but the Milwaukee Road also had one. It wasn't quite like this though. This is very, I mean, if not exactly alike, it is very similar to the SB. So,
right,
yeah, I love the logo though.
Yeah,
it's just fast looking. So,
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Vic. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, Bo, you might just for a second, again, if you have any questions or anything, raise your hand, type in questions. What else do you collect besides dining car, China, and silver? I know you got a lot there. So,
well, anything that has to do with Southern. Again, that's my railroad of choice, but I also do collect several short lines from this area, but I do lanterns, bells, whistles, paper, headlights, uniforms, passes. You can't see it, Pullman lamps. I love Pullman table lamps. Let's see, I'll put there we go. I'll put it on the Pullman table lamp. And it's a Pullman table lamp, and it's sitting on a table out of a Southern Pullman car. So anything to do with Southern, Chad. I've recently, started doing some number boards and some of the heavier hardware, builder's plates and whatnot. So let's see. And I've got some, let's see, I'll turn this. I went up to Morphy's and bought clinch cross. drove to Pennsylvania to get clinch cross. So it was, so like I said, about anything to do with Southern. So.
I understand. You brought up an interesting point on one of the pieces, and I found this really interesting on repairing the water pitcher at
Yes.
shop. Was that all done in Haynes? Or, I mean, we know, like, when you get the Southern steam locomotive, even design, I mean, each shop had their own unique trademark. I mean, you could look at an engine that was shopped at Ferguson and Somerset, Kentucky, and know, hey, that engine was shopped at Somerset. Or you could look at a Princeton shop or a Spencer. I mean, so did everything go to Haynes to be repaired or fixed? I mean, that's a really unique story there.
It's my understanding that all passenger cars, dining cars, silver replating, everything was done at Haynes Car Shop. They had complete carpenter shops, they had blacksmiths, they had upholstery shops, and they redid all their stuff there. That kind of an interesting story about their plating. When they did away with plating there, got out of the dining car, the gentleman, or one of the guys who had done the plating for many, many years there in Spartanburg, took all this stuff home with him. And he was now plating all this silver, all these chemicals in the basement of his house. And he'd do it for all the local people in Spartanburg. Well, when he died, his basement like became a Superfund site. Oh. Because now we have all these toxic chemicals in his basement and they don't know what to do with them.
Wow.
So, but it was interesting. But yeah, Joseph's over here prompting me to tell a story. And when I started collecting dining car china and silver, my dad was still alive. My dad was a carman with Southern. And when I bought my first peach blossom dinner plate, I was so excited. So I had to take it and show it to my dad. He looked at me and he said, "You actually bought that?" I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, I bought it." I was like, he said, "Huh?" He said, we used to stand on the back of those dining cars and throw those plates across the yard like Frisbees just to watch them break." So, and then Joseph has a friend that was an engineer with NS, and they had to pull into Haynes one day. I think they were holding in a holding track, wasn't it, Joseph? They pulled in on a holding track. He gets off the locomotive and he sends Joseph pictures. He was all excited. He had found shards of peach blossom china.
Wow.
Where, like I said, they just throw them like Frisbees. So.
Wow, that's incredible, like shooting sporting clays out. So we had a question from Jameson Kahn, member of RCAI and helping us on the 5-year strategic plan. Stay tuned, RCAI members. Jameson wants to know if you have any Southern departure boards, and if so, what location are they from? And I, kind of being a Southern collector, it's kind of unique. You seem to find departure boards on the north end and the south end, but none in between. So you got any unique ones there, Bo?
Well, I've got one from Salisbury, North Carolina. I've got one from Asheville, North Carolina. I've got one from Griffin, Georgia. I've got one from Morganton, North Carolina. I've got one from what's the place with the apple? The depot with the apple. I've got one from Cornelia, Georgia. And then I've got one off the Pelican that I kind of know where it is, but I'm not exactly sure. But then I've got some others that I don't know where they are, but I've got a few that I know where they are. So let's see. You can't see there. Let's see that one. I think that's Asheville in the background there. So but I've got a few yet. And I've got a really nice one that has the Royal Palm, the Carolina Special. Oh yeah, I got a real nice one of those.
Really So yeah, just for, I guess, transparency, that one's coming back to the Kentucky area next week. More appropriate ones heading to Travelers Rest, South Carolina.
That's right. That's right.
I have some business in Columbia, South Carolina, and stop by Travelers Rest, do a little trading. So we'll just put it in. So.
Oh my. That's the beauty of this hobby. It's not only the collecting it, not only the history that you're saving, but the people you meet along the way, the friends you make, the camaraderie. That's better than any of it, because I know we've all made friends that will last us a lifetime. And that the railroad shows, I mean, as they dwindle, that's the sad part about it, because the camaraderie will be gone. I love that part of it.
Yeah, you know, that's a great great topic, because, you know, Bo, as you and I talked, I went to the Columbus train show this past weekend and didn't pick up the first item, but as I told you, you know, the socialization and the networking and just meeting up with old friends, particularly past the COVID year and a half that we had to go through together, you know, that was worth its weight in gold. I didn't have to buy anything to walk away happy and appreciative of the hobby and being around everybody. And it was great to see old friends and you know, just know the hobby's thriving. I mean, there's no doubt.
Oh, it is.
You know, while some of it's moving away from in-person shows and everything else to online auctions and everything else, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or economist to figure out that the hobby's strong. There's a lot of interest, and despite what some say, we're gaining interest by the day. And these, you know, we'll talk about it more in RCAI issues in the future, but these large auction houses that market themselves and get their name, ID, and word out there, I think it's bringing a lot of new folks in the fold, and folks that are seeing that you know, Railroadiana, no matter what it is a value compared to some of this stuff in other sectors of antique collecting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, hey, and I think these Zoom calls are a way that you now get together from your home. You know, as shows dwindle, this is a way to still be in touch with your friends, to be in touch with other collectors, and the kind of a social side of it. It's different, but
it's a sign of the times. All right, we've had a couple of people asked to talk here. We'll go to name Eleanor Hodges. So ask them to unmute. There we go.
Bo, can you hear me?
yes.
I'm not Eleanor, but I'm John.
Hey, John, how are you? How are you in Columbia down there?
I'm great. Hey, this is a great presentation. Really enjoyed it.
Yes,
I was just going to mention or add, you didn't talk anything about business car pattern China or the Carolina pattern, which I have found is very hard to find.
I briefly mentioned Carolina, but I didn't get into the business car. I probably should have, but I didn't. I've only seen two different styles of that, though.
Well, we got to leave people wanting more, Bo. So that's a future presentation here.
Oh, we could do one on business car. That business car is quite interesting in that aspect. So, John, you still there?
Yeah.
How many? I know you found some Carolina pattern pieces. What pieces have you found in Carolina?
I have one piece.
Oh, which one is it? The celery?
Yeah, it's either that. Yeah, I think it's the celery dish.
I'm convinced that was what Southern threw into the pool. I'm just convinced. Okay, Southern, you buy relish dishes, celery dishes. So I'm convinced of that.
And that's all they had. You're probably right.
Yeah, I've got a cup and saucer, but I've got a cup and saucer in the celery, so that's it.
Wow.
But I'm glad you enjoyed it, man.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that makes me think of, you know, another Kentucky road, the L&N. You'll never see an L&N step stool, and that's just because they relied on everybody else's step stools in the pool to get from Chicago to New Orleans or Jacksonville, however they were getting there. All right,
Isn't that interesting how they so they did that with some things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at any video of a L&M passenger train leaving Louisville, and I mean, it looked like a pre-Amtrak. I mean, it looked like an Amtrak train. I mean, it had from everybody in it. So,
yeah.
All right, we're going back to Vic Ryerson, who has another question. So,
okay. Vic
this is Vic. I just think I pressed the button twice, or the raise hand button, but you answered my questions. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Vic.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Vic. And if there's no other questions or comments, Bo, that was a fantastic. Wait, we got a couple more questions coming in. All right, here we go. Feel like I'm controlling the DJ track here. We got Doug coming up.
Hi.
Hello, Doug.
Is it working? Good. Hi. I just appreciate being able to hear all of this. It's been fascinating. I'm with you, Bo. I love the Southern, and my blood runs green and gold. I'm convinced of it, even though it didn't come out that way. But but one of the things one of my favorite items about Southern dining car service, I have a couple of breakfast menus, and one goes back to, I think, like around 64, 67, something like that. And the main part of that menu, it says Rebel Breakfast, and it's got a battle flag flying off to the corner. And the way that changed over the years, from Rebel Breakfast to Southern Breakfast.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, just, realizing that, wait a minute, it's not just all white people in here anymore.
That's it. We're offending people. Let's change it. I've got one of the Rebel breakfast menus. I know what you're talking about.
But I love that the food didn't change.
No, it did not.
And I have to say, my last trip on the Southern Crescent before Amtrak took it over, I was sitting there in the dining car having breakfast, about to reach Atlanta, and I asked for a dozen bran muffins to go. And that it just me like I was the craziest son of a gun they'd ever seen, which he impressed him to me. I wrapped up in foil, but I just,
oh yeah.
I said, these are special. What? What's so special about them? They're made here on the train.
That's right.
I wish I'd frozen one and kept it, but I ate them up. They were delicious, of course.
Yeah, like I said, my grandfather and I would catch the train in Spartanburg, South Carolina, ride his pass to Atlanta just so we could eat on the train. That only reason we went was so we could eat.
That was oh, absolutely. I'll have to get in touch with you offline because I was modeling Southern's line from Spartanburg to Charlotte. I've gotten as far as Spartanburg to Gaffney.
Oh, okay.
I had to take it down, but I'm modeling September of 41, and I have one of those Southern. I think it was a seat assignment ticket. It wasn't actually for transportation.
Okay.
But it landed in New York. And I think my love of the train, my dad was okay with it, but my mom loved riding the train.
Oh, yeah.
And she thank you very much.
Good times, man.
Thank you so much for this. It's been great.
Thank you, Doug. Welcome.
And Bo, we'll take this one last question that we had online. Someone asked if all business car China and Silver had blue marks on the bottom.
I can't answer that yes or no because I know I have a Demitasse cup and saucer that is not marked, and I know for an absolute fact it came off a business car. What I've been told is that on the bigger pieces, yes. On the smaller pieces, if it had the gold, because it was a stock pattern, it was the York pattern. And what Southern did was add the gold to it. They added the gold rim. So on the smaller pieces, and I have 2 pieces that I know, again, one's a Dimitas cup and saucer, and one is a gravy boat that I know came off a business card. And neither one of them are bottom marked. So bigger pieces, yes, platters, plates, celeries, all of that did have that blue Southern Serves the South logo on it. But the smaller pieces did not all have it. So, you know, which, like I said, the 2 pieces I have, I know they came off of there, but I'm the only one that knows it. So, you know, it'd be up for debate if I was trying to sell them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, just like anything Southern did.
yeah, you're absolutely right. You know,
it's 1401 sitting in the Smithsonian with a Ferguson number board on it. So, you know, it's
yeah, go figure, you know,
it's just it's the Southern Railway. So that's
yeah. Yep.
With that, we'll bring this presentation to conclusion. Bo, thank you for everything you did to prepare for this. I know, you know, a lot goes into the presentation, a lot more than what folks realize on this hour and a half or so presentation. But those of you that participated, we greatly appreciate it. Again, we'll be uploading this to YouTube within the next, let's just call it 2 weeks as an all-volunteer organization, but you'll be able to share the link and rewatch the presentation. But wow, that was just some great stuff. Just like showing up to your train show from your house. So Bo and Joseph, thanks to both of you all. And then again, I just want to thank everybody for your membership to RCAI and participating in tonight's event. And I'll go on and announce that our next event, Diane Hoffman, who helps recruit candidates to present, John Fowler is going to be our next presenter on August the 3rd. So stay tuned to your next Express for more information on Mr. Fowler's presentation, but we know that's going to be informative. And then we hope to have a couple more between between Mr. Fowler's presentation and the end of the year. So again, thank you all for your time tonight, and thank you all for your membership to RCAI. And Bo and Joseph, thank you all for everything you did tonight. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I want to thank Joseph, because without him, I couldn't have done it. So he's my right-hand man.
Yeah, so, there you go. So Joseph,
yeah.
So we appreciate it, everybody. And thanks to all you all for participating tonight. This has been fantastic. So
All right.
All right.
Have a good evening.